Hey everyone, welcome to Fast Talk, your source for the science of endurance performance. I'm your host, Chris Case. If you consider yourself an athlete, and presumably you do since you're listening to this show, then your definition of what that means has likely evolved through the years. Think about your lifestyle, your mental health, your training routine, even your friends and community. To what extent are feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment connected to your definition? Think about the arc of your involvement in sports, the positive and negative aspects of what that has meant for you as a person, and the place athletics has, and hopefully continues to hold, in the greater context of your life. Are you aware of the fortune it brings? Do you take it for granted? Lachlan Morton, who now rides for the Education First Nippo World Tour team, has been fortunate throughout his career to have something most of us don't have, and that is immense talent. Yet, that talent hasn't always been enough to make him happy with his career. It hasn't always gone smoothly. It hasn't been always comfortable. Lachlan, who is, full disclosure, friend of mine, has gone through a very public and well-documented evolution as an athlete. He started long ago as a young kid with huge potential, then quickly became depressed and disillusioned at the pro level, ultimately turning into a bit of a rogue vagabond. Then he rode across the Australian outback and was able to rekindle the fire, so to speak, returning to the sport at an entirely different level, but one that afforded him the chance to do things he couldn't do before, and therefore express things he needed to express. His career has only gone on from there, really up from there. Now he balances World Tour racing with other feats of endurance like bike packing races, fastest known time attempts, and other alternative races. In essence, he has gone through significant and you might even say massive changes in the last 15 years since he started racing a bike. And while it may not be entirely explicit in this conversation, his evolution as an athlete holds valuable lessons because it contains a universal truth. Ultimately, being an athlete is about loving what you do and doing what you love. Hopefully, this episode will help you find even more love with the sport you enjoy. Let's make you fast. By now, you've heard that Fast Talk is much more than a podcast. At Fast Talk Laboratories, we have hundreds of new ideas waiting for you to explore in articles, videos, and interviews with top experts and Fast Talk podcast guests. We'd like you to join Fast Talk Laboratories free for 2 weeks. You'll get full access to everything, all our online articles, video workshops, webinars, guided workouts, and our forum. If our membership isn't for you, just cancel within 14 days and you won't be charged. To get your free 2-week trial membership, visit fasttalklabs.com, choose library membership, and check out with the discount code PODCAST. Hurry, our offer ends March 31st. Well, welcome, Lachlan Morton, to the show, to Fast Talk. We've known each other for a long time. I'm surprised we haven't had you on the show before, but welcome to Fast Talk.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I have known you since you were, well, I didn't really know you, but we raced against one another when you were 14 and I was probably twice that age, but you came over here to the United States, real Aussie kids.
Yep.
Your journey as a cyclist had already begun.
A long time before that, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, and we've had a lot of conversations over the years about the you know, from the outside, it seems like there are these distinct chapters in your life, in your career. Probably to you, it doesn't feel necessarily like that, but that's kind of what I want to explore, that we want to explore. So one of the conversations we've had in the past that I want to revisit is this kind of obsessiveness that you brought to your training when you were a kid.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me at one point that it got to the point where you would have a plan to leave your house in Port Macquarie, Australia, where you grew up, at 5:00.
Yeah.
But if you missed that mark, you couldn't leave the house at 5:03. You had to wait till 5:15 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that gives that gives you
I very rarely missed it.
Okay. So let's just explore, why, tell us about that obsessiveness. Why was that there as a kid?
I couldn't tell you why. It kind of developed out of like a want to just be better. So there's probably like a control element, I imagine. Like I'm not a psychologist, but I just sort of can tell you from like
Sure you are.
my perspective. So like, I started like just racing on the weekends, at the local club, and it was just like a fun thing I did after like playing soccer in the morning, and then, when I was, I think 10, I saw the Tour de France, like in
person,
real life.
Yep.
And like I made the decision like then I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Cause like cycling was just a weird sport still in Australia.
Sure.
Like the idea of doing it professionally didn't seem like a real reality. And then you saw it and it was kind of this sport that was like a big deal. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Because I had like an ability like that. It came to me more naturally than other sports like soccer.
Yeah.
So,
this is not unlike a lot of pro athletes that have this story of the moment when they maybe saw a race or saw a person that they idolized and were like, that's what I want to do. And I've heard that a lot from people. And most of the time I'm like, yeah, right, that's not true. But
it's very much like, from that point, that's what I told people I was going to do as well.
When you were 10.
Yeah. And so that's when I started training. So that like, for me involved like waking up early, and I wasn't all that. Like to start with, I couldn't ride more than 10Ks from home. Just because, like,
as a 10-year-old, like, just like out into the, you call it the outback.
Well, I used to say to the dirt road and back.
Okay.
Which, like, we lived on like weirdly this small island in a river, like a farming sort of island, and you could ride. It was like a 5K loop, so 2.5Ks out, and then you got to the dirt road, and then you come back, and so I would do like 4 laps or something, and then immediately, like, at club racing, I was better, like, so I went from D grade to B grade, and then it's like, okay, this sort of works. And then I did like my first races away, and you could see other kids like kind of doing the same thing, and it felt good to win, and like be better than people. Especially like when you're young, like it feels good to be better than people at something.
Do you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but would you call it, looking back now, do you call it obsessive behavior? And was it to the unhealthy level?
Probably, yeah, for that age, for sure. Like if I had that attitude now and you're trying to win like the Tour de France, probably help you.
Yeah, right. And we've talked about how things in the pro cycling world that are considered normal are wildly abnormal for the quote unquote real world, right?
Totally, yeah. And like, it would come to the detriment of a lot of things, but it would help you in getting faster at riding.
And that's all you cared about.
Yeah,
then.
So it was just kind of like a slow process, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Until when I was like 16, and like I was national champion in everything. And what
do you mean by everything? I don't know that I know. Like cyclocross,
the time trial. No, everything on the road.
Okay.
And I used to race on the track as well.
Of course.
But yeah. But yeah, that's when I would like do close to like 30-hour weeks like when I was at school.
Wow.
And
when you're 15, 16, you were doing 30-hour weeks.
Yeah. And like a full week at school, and then travel on the weekends to race or whatever.
Do you think you would have been able to become a pro if you hadn't done that? Is that what it took for you to reach that level?
I think it did. Yeah. Like, I don't think I had like the raw talent that a lot of really good guys have. like guys who come to it late or whatever. I kind of like trained that talent into myself.
Bludgeoned it into yourself.
And I think it served me well in that, like, at that time, if you weren't, and I wasn't like in the Australian national team, like, umbrella. So it was a hard jump to make. So you had to be really good to sort of get noticed. And yeah, I got really good when I was young, and that helped me make that jump. I think like I wouldn't change it now. If I was trying to like go back to like the 16-year-old me and with the idea of still like trying to win the Tour de France, like I would say, okay, cool it, you know. But like I wouldn't change it now. So, but yeah, at the time it was just kind of what I was doing because my older brother was very similar, and he was 2 years older than me, still is.
How about that?
But he was really good, and so I was trying to beat everything he did. So I would just kind of take whatever he was doing and just do it.
And double it, or basically
amp it up.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of how it morphed.
So what was the motivator for you? What drove you to be this obsessive, put in this much time? Was it that you just you saw the Tour de France, you fell in love and you wanted to get there? Or was it more, this is just part of your personality and you needed something to...
It was a bit of both. I think to start with, it was like, that was what I wanted to do. And it was such a ridiculous thing to like tell your high school teacher that like you wanted to prove it. And then
put a little added pressure on yourself there.
Yeah, but I just enjoy I still do. Like I enjoy the discomfort and the sort of like just constantly putting yourself under a bit of pressure. So that was definitely in my personality. I think most, like my dad has that, my brother has that. Like it's just something in our family as well. But yeah, it's definitely a combination of both. But like, it wasn't like I enjoyed when the alarm went off at 4:30 and like, you know, getting out there on the bike. Like
that's a strange kid that likes to get up at 4:30 in the morning.
Super strange. And I used to love getting to school at like, 9 o'clock. Felt like you'd already had a whole day. Right. You know, like you've been out for 3 hours, seen a bunch of stuff, kind of like ticked all your boxes, and then go to school. And like everyone else is just starting. I kind of like that feeling. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it definitely started as a competitive thing, but then it was just something I enjoyed.
If you look back on that time now, and maybe you don't, but if you do you draw any lessons from that time in life? Both either positive or like positive things that you know.
Yeah, I think
draw from.
There's a lot of positives in that. I think like I created like a work ethic, so I don't mind working hard. Mm-hmm. But
you saw the results of working hard. That probably helped, right?
Yeah, and I think I also just kind of normalized this really high level of work, mm-hmm. you know? So mm-hmm. like if I'm not doing a lot, I feel lazy, which serves you well in a lot of things. Not all the time, but like
sure.
That's a positive that came from it. But I mean, at the same time, I wish I'd like maybe branched out a bit, like especially in riding. I was so focused on just riding my road bike. Like I wish I started riding a mountain bike back then, or like, you know, spent more time on my dirt bike, or just like doing mm-hmm. different things. Or like I grew up on the beach and never learned to surf because like I was always riding.
Shame.
You know, like things like that. I'm like, probably I wish I'd done that.
So too narrowly focused.
Totally. But and I also like I realize now that like anything I was doing that wasn't riding, in my opinion, was like slowing me down.
Yeah. That goes hand in hand, I think, with an obsessive quality,
Yeah.
especially as a junior, like just disregarding all that other cool stuff you could be doing, that your friends might be doing, and just being like, bam, if I'm not riding my bike, I'm getting slower.
Totally.
Right.
But then again, like, maybe if I hadn't done that, like, things would have turned out differently. So I'm not like,
you don't have regrets.
Don't have regrets. No.
That was going to be my question for you. If you went back and made these changes, do you think you would have been a better cyclist for it, or
I think
you need that obsession back then?
I think knowing what I know now, if I could apply it, like, yes, but I wouldn't have, and none of us did. So, like, I think to like achieve what I did at that young age, to get noticed, to be able to race now in the world tour, like, maybe I don't think it would have happened if I wasn't as that's just me personally, because I was so like all or nothing, you know. So I think I needed that. Like, as I said, like, that serves you well a lot of the time to performing, because that kind of, like, your whole lifestyle becomes very structured and rigid, which, like, I think to be like an absolute top level performer in most professional sports, you kind of need that. But I think that's also why you see a lot of, like, dysfunction and people who are high performers.
There's a difference between high performance and high health.
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
Of times.
Yeah. And just like, I know I wouldn't have space for a lot of the things I have space for in my life now if I still had that trait as strong. I still have, like, a bit of that trait, but it's not nearly as strong as it was.
You probably need to have that trait, but you also have a bit of wisdom and other priorities, right? Have come along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it just becomes a balance, right?
Yeah.
And there's more people for me to consider in my life now as well, which is a big part of it. But also just like, I think, like, coming back to longevity, you know, like, I don't think I would have lasted nearly as long. I don't think I would enjoy cycling as much as I do now had I followed that route so
if you
long,
maintain that level.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump ahead to this one of the other times in your life that I wanted to address, which was basically you jump from high school into graduate school. You go straight into the world tour and get thrown into the deep end, or so it seems. Go over to Europe, not having a lot of fun. I would probably even say that you were depressed and struggling over there by yourself.
Yeah.
Would you mind just describing that a little bit more? Why that felt that way?
Yeah. That was a hard one. It was like, I think the biggest thing was, like, I'd kind of achieved that goal that the 10-year-old me had. And
how old were you when you first made it over to Europe?
I think I was 20.
Pretty young.
Yeah, like, very young. And also, so, like, I'd achieved this goal, so there's already, like, okay, a little bit of, like, what now? Especially when I got there and I was kind of like, it's not really it. You know, like, you're like, I've been chasing this, and you sort of get there and you're like,
the dream isn't so much of a dream anymore.
Yeah, like, the shine comes off, you know, like, the buses are nicer from the outside, you know?
Right.
And, like, a bag full of, like, nice kit and, like, you know, a supposedly great coach, like, that doesn't really fulfill you as much as you think it's going to. So then the focus becomes like, all right, well, I need to start winning, because, like, that's how I know to make that, you know, happiness, like, tick. And I, like, tried to take it on myself, because that was also my personality then. So I just kind of isolated myself, and, like, I would go for months without speaking to mum and dad and, like, my brother and that, because I was just kind of focused on this goal. And then in the first year, the first half of the year, nothing was working. And that's normal for any like professional who starts.
Neo pro, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't that wasn't really explained to me. So
you didn't have a support. You didn't have a support system. No, is what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. And so it became this. It seemed impossible, you know. I was like, well, the only way I'll be happy here is if I'm winning, and like this level is too high. And then I wanted to stop, and then, right when I wanted to stop, I just like fell into good form and like won in Utah and wore the yellow jersey in Colorado. And I was like, oh, that takes care of that. You know, like, oh, I'm happy again.
but that was one thing that you mentioned to me, and I think it was 2013.
Yeah.
You stood on the podium in Colorado.
Yeah.
But then you went back to the hotel and you're in the shower and you're kind of like, this still sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like an emptiness. It's like kind of it's that same thing because you think winning's going to like solve it. And then you sort of find yourself like in a surrounding where you're still like, oh, these aren't really like my people. Then you're like, I don't really have like any good friends anymore, or like my relationships aren't great.
Because you've had to sacrifice a lot to be at that level, or you just felt out of your element.
Well, you just
both?
kind of like the people who were in professional cycling at that time, like I didn't really resonate with. And then also like you've chased this strange goal. It's a really long way from where you came from. So you're sort of just like a bit lost. And then I went from there and went straight back to Australia and then did the ride to Uluru with my brother.
Right, thereabouts.
Yeah. Which was like a big relationship change with cycling. And in one way, it like made me love cycling more, but it was in the total opposite direction that I was going.
Former World Tour racer turned gravel rider Ted King also started out his cycling career in school, but his experience coming out of school was a little different. Let's hear what he has to say.
My career has been an evolution as much as anything, and it's been a series of doors opening and deciding to take the step through them. I'll walk you through my career real quick. So I got into cycling because my older brother was a collegiate cyclist, and I got to college and I was thinking about what thing I might do to occupy my time, and collegiate cycling entered my realm of consideration. So I got into collegiate cycling, and then I ran with that, and that allowed me to race on the U.S. national team, and that allowed me to race on I remember senior year of college, my classmates and friends were applying to jobs on Wall Street and in finance, and I was applying to race on domestic pro teams. And so I ran with that, and I did that for a couple of years. And then the door opened up to go race in Europe and race with the Cervelo test team. And it was unexpected at the time, and I took it and I went for it. And then racing for Liquigas, I mean, that is, there's no better word than foreign, but the opportunity was there and I took it, and it was a challenge and one that, especially in hindsight, I can appreciate and love doing, but big challenge at the time. And then it came time to, race for under the Vader slipstream operation for my final year, and I jumped at that, and that was a blast. And then come the end of 2015, that was my final year racing the World Tour. 2016, I had no idea what I was going to do. I half assumed that I was going to go back to the world of finance and use my degree in economics. And the opportunity presented itself to be, at that point, like 2016, we weren't using the term ambassador. There was no such thing as a gravel racer. So it was looking at what somebody like Tim Johnson was doing, and Jeremy Powers with his independent cyclocross program, and doing a privateer wasn't the term at the time, but it is this privateer independent program. And at that point, competition really wasn't part of the conversation, but that has been an evolution over these past 5 years too. So it's looking at the viability of it. It's making I've never sat down and made a pro-con list, but it's internalizing and saying like, what are the possibilities of this next pretty big decision? It's having conversations with friends and confidants and family and saying, is this viable? So yeah, I've had a wild ride in cycling, and here we are now more than 20 years in, and I really wouldn't change a thing. I mean, maybe I'd be like, oh, you know what? I should have gone in that breakaway instead of sitting in when I could have followed that guy's wheel. But it's been a pretty awesome ride. There are far more fun moments now than there were in a World Tour race career. That is a job, and there are moments of fun, but they're fewer and further between. It's a job and it's work, and those are your colleagues, and no different than when you're at the office. You have your friends and the folks you get along with and you don't get along with, and it's a job. Whereas now, my job is to ride my bike and to get people excited about riding bikes and to talk about really cool products that I'm excited to be working with. The motivation now, like I don't need the motivation now. My motivation is because getting up every day is just fun. In a competitive period in my life, and I'm not trying to poo-poo the competitive side of it, because bike racing was fun then, and you're thinking of the alternative, like, you know what, yeah, maybe I'm going to hang it up and go do something else. That's not really a decision because you're so far into the sport, you're so involved, and certainly you haven't made it to whatever professional level without a huge aspect of devotion and fondness for the sport. The good moments outshine the bad as much as anything, so you can get through a lot of tough, really low moments knowing that there is something a little bit shinier on the other side.
So for people that don't know the story of thereabouts, you basically quit professional cycling and said, I'm done. Hatch this plan with Gus, your brother, to ride from your house. Was it your parents' place or where you grew up, Port Macquarie, to Uluru? Mm-hmm. Some people might know it as Ayers Rock, in the middle of the desert in Australia, which is a couple thousand kilometers.
Yeah. I should know the exact.
It's a long way, and it's hot, and it's dirt.
Yeah.
And it's what it is not professional cycling in Europe is what it is. Right.
And it was like, at that point, it was very different than anything I'd ever done riding, because I'd only ever trained or raced.
You turned around when you got to that dirt road when you were a kid. Exactly. Now you're heading straight for it because that's what you craved.
Yeah. And so that was like a big shift. And I still had 1 year on my contract with Garmin. And I went back to Europe and just hated it. Then I really just hated the racing and couldn't bring myself to go training or do anything.
This is when you went rogue and started mountain biking in Andorra, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. And bought a bunch of camping stuff. I had this trailer, and I would just go to the Pyrenees and go camping. And then I actually snuck home.
You basically gave birth to bike packing.
It was alive and well before then, but I think I did.
I know.
I brought it into the road sphere.
Road sphere.
But then. Yeah, I even stuck home. At one point, I'd started seeing my now wife, Rachel, and she was at university in Sydney. And it was May or April. It was just before a tour of Romandy, I remember. I was sitting in Girona, and I was just this isn't it. And then I just at the cafe, I was sitting I just booked a flight for that night. And I just left and went back to Australia for a week. And then flew back and got back the night before Romandy started. And I turned up. I was rooming with Rowan Dennis. And I remember I just felt I had to tell someone that, because everyone's getting ready, and I was like, man, I have not ridden. I got back from Australia last night. You couldn't believe it.
I'm sure you had a good laugh over that. I was on
my hands and knees in that race. Yeah. But that was kind of how that year was. And it was very clear to me, like, pretty early on in that season that I was going to can World Tour racing. Just because, like, I just hated it. I was like, if this is how I have to feel to race here, like, I don't want that. I'd rather not ride ever again than, like, just continue to live like this.
What was it about cycling? You might not be able to explain this, but what was it that made you just say, I hate this, I don't want to be part of this?
I think it was sort of like, I mean, there was so much of my like self-worth was attached to how I performed riding, like a number or a result, or like and so much of how the people I was surrounded by also valued me was dependent on like a result or like a number I could produce. Or so every day, like, you go training and
you didn't feel human. It sounds like you were a number or a statistic or a something else.
And also, like, you kind of inherit that like idea that you need to knock
That's unhealthy.
Training out of the park every time, or like every time you race you need to do X result, otherwise, like, I'm a piece of shit. you know? And like the fact you can have a bad ride, a bad training session, and then have it just ruin your whole day. And it was a snowballing of that and the more I hated it, the harder. You have to love it if you want to perform well, or if you're going to perform well. So it just kind of is a spiral. So it got to the point I just didn't even want to watch racing. Just didn't want anything to do with it. And also the environment I was in, Girona, is like professional cycling. So like you're in this like kind of pressure cooker of it, where you can't really get out of it. So it was not a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of something we've spoken about too, which is this notion that, and I think it speaks to this point, the kind of the day you sign the contract to become a professional cyclist, you are then, your body is essentially your job, and totally. That is a level of commitment, pressure, whatever word you want to put on it, that changes the dynamic completely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's a 24-hour job, right? Because like, you're not just getting paid to ride, you're getting paid to sleep 8 hours a night. Like,
yeah, you can break it down. Well. You're getting paid to eat this instead of that, and not go out with your friends and stay in and kick your feet up.
And it's an age where like that, all that stuff is so quantifiable now. You know that like your job is 24/7. So yeah, like and also like you kind of, you're doing it for someone, or a lot of the time you feel like you're doing it for someone else. At that point I did. Because like someone's paying you and they're expecting something and you feel like you owe it to them. Or at that point I did. So that's when you don't have internal motivation, you know, it's only external. And for me that just doesn't work. So I had to like remove myself from that environment like completely, to like work out, all right, is this something I even want to do? Like I was so far gone from my initial motivations that I was like, do I even want to do this at all? And then if I do, like, why? You know, and it has to be on my terms and for my reasons. And I was very lucky that I had like the situation that I could sort of do that. Because I left racing in Europe to come and race in America, and my parents had moved to the States for their job at that time, so I could go back and live with them, which was amazing because I hadn't lived at home since I was like 18, and just to be in that environment for one was like, oh, you know, like I missed like being around my family, and I could sort of find my own way without the pressure of being like, all right, I need to move on to the next thing, which I was very lucky to have that situation. And I ended up riding with Jelly Belly with Danny Van Hout, which was like the best career move I ever made. I remember when I was leaving Girona. I was good friends with Dave Miller at that time, and I still am. He's still a good mate. And he really wanted me to try and get on to Sky. He was like, that's what you need. Like, you need more structure.
I don't think so.
And I was like, I don't think it's what I need. But at that point, I was like, I don't know what I need. And I was like, I think I'm going to go and race with Jelly Belly. And remember, he was like, I think if you do that, you never get back. And I believed him and was still like, I've got to do it. And
I think sorry to cut you off, but I think that's an awesome lesson.
Totally.
Is that eventually you just went with your heart or your gut or whatever you want to call it, and you said, you just kind of have to make the leap, right? Sometimes. And
and looking back at it, it seems like it was a big decision, but to be honest, at the time, I was so unhappy that like it wasn't even a decision, you know. It was just like, this is what I got to do.
What year was that?
2014. Yeah, then I had 2015 with Danny at Jelly Belly, and I raced with my brother again.
Yeah, I
was living back with my parents. I got married. I got a dog, and like I kind of just it was just a process of like falling in love with racing again.
You could see it too in the way you raced. I mean, stuff you did at Utah and I was just having fun again. Yeah,
and because like, everyone was motivated for the love of it at that level, because like everyone's barely getting paid, and you're sleeping on the floor and host housing, and like it's great, you know. Like that's like it's real. There's real passion there, and I hadn't had that since I was like, 15.
Real Aussie kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, it was inspiring to see other people who like were so hungry for it, but from like a place of just loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like inspiring and sort of made me think of like, what am I trying to achieve here? And then over the course of that year, I just reassessed the whole, my position in the sport, and like tried to work out if I was gonna chase it again, like how I would go about it, in that A, I would be happy, but B, I could sort of maintain that new sort of environment that I'd created. And it took like a whole year to really work that out. And then the next year I was like, all right, I'd like to try and go back to the world tour on my own terms, because I knew if I never chased it, I was like, there'll be a part of me that sort of regrets not going and like chasing that, even if I just go for a year.
Yeah. I really like to hear you explain this. I was on one of the big world tour teams and I hated it, and I slept on some floors with Jelly Belly and a bunch of other dudes who just love to race their bike, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my career. I think that's awesome that more people probably should do that.
Totally.
make those choices.
And I think ultimately it just gave me ownership over my whole career, I guess, but also just my relationship with riding. Because I started to enjoy the stuff outside of racing more. But I realized the racing could enable me to have that lifestyle. And just the realization, I'm like, that's like the dream lifestyle, you know? And like I had it in a lot of ways, but just didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all just a mindset. And it went from being a chore to like a privilege, you know, to do it. So that's, I think, ultimately what sort of gave me the mental or the motivation to go back into the fire, I guess, you know, like in a lot of ways.
To mention data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I've never come, like, I've had moments being in World Tour races again of just sort of questioning, like, why? And then, but I have enough experience now to be like, actually, this is like 4 hours of your life. You know?
And I'm sure there's a lot of, you race
like
enough
a hot
that
shower afterwards,
right,
you
yeah,
know?
some days you're just not going to feel it.
Yeah, that's like any job, right?
Exactly.
And it enables me to do a bunch of things. You know, not. I mean, I enjoy most 90% of racing. I enjoy, and then, you know, everything I do outside of racing, I really love, and like, it's kind of, I do one, to be able to do the other.
Mm-hmm.
So the year you were racing for Jelly Belly, I was actually managing Team Rio Grande, and we were talking to Jelly Belly about a partnership. But I know exactly what you're talking about, because that was important to us, that engendering that, building that passion that this is about the racing. We actually had a really good budget, but quite intentionally bought a crappy van.
Yeah.
Quite intentionally made sure we were doing the host house. We could afford to do better. But we just wanted to communicate, guys, that's not what it's about. Yeah. You want to be sleeping on the floors. You want to be in the van that breaks down on the side of the road.
Totally.
This is all about the racing.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's a really great way to develop as an athlete and a person, I think, to be in those situations, you know, like a group of like-minded people, just kind of like scrapping through to all like actually achieve something, all like on your way somewhere. I think it's cool. But even on Jelly Belly, I mean, they used to let us borrow the Jelly Belly had like a big bus,
the RV
that looked like
like a jelly bean.
Well, no, it looked like a World Tour bus, you know,
yeah.
like from the outside.
Sure.
And we used to get to borrow it for California, except there was an old couple who that was their job. They drove it everywhere, and they were old, and they were like mid-80s, and constantly arguing about like which way to go.
I remember you telling me.
But also, we weren't
like
allowed in the back like 2/3 of the bus. Like that was their space.
That was their space.
So it wasn't even, we had to set up like chairs in the aisle anyway. It was just it was so much more uncomfortable than like, you know, the regular setup.
It
like
looked
just getting
good.
changed outside.
It looked good outside.
It looked the part. But inside it was a different story.
That's pretty funny. But I saw exactly what you're talking about. And when we were trying to develop athletes, and particularly when riders would come on Rio and say, you know, I want to go all the way, I want to be pro. The questions weren't, do you have the strength? Are you putting out the numbers in the physiological tests? Because usually it's, if you got here, you have some talent, you can be developed. It's, are you up for the lifestyle?
Yeah.
And I learned very early on is test that. Because a lot of guys, when they start to get into that lifestyle, go, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I had an athlete who was on Rio, and we were developing him. Phenomenally talented kid. Was brand new, so it was U23, but he won the Cat 1-2 race at Gila.
Yeah.
And that was his last day as a racer, because he said the same thing. He stood there on the podium. He had just won the race, looked around and said, this is it?
Yeah, right.
And was just done.
Such a anticlimactic moment. In some ways.
Yeah, it's funny. I won the same stage in Utah once on Garmin, and then the exact same stage I won on Jelly Belly.
The one over Empire Pass, correct? And finish
Nebo.
Oh right, yes.
Earlier in the week,
the long flat stuff, and then you hit Nebo and you went up and over, and you had Zabriskie working for you 1 year.
And the next year it was Gus and Taylor Sheldon from Breckenridge, and they just destroyed the bunch at the bottom. And then I went away with Talansky and Adrian Costa.
Yep.
And I beat him in a 3-up finish, and it was like, it was so much. It meant so much more to do it with Jelly Belly and like with a group of people, you know, because there were so many people involved with it. Whereas before it had just been me training, you know, like doing my like old me thing. So there was like a really good contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And when I won that race, the last stage in Park City, I knew that I was very aware of it. I was lucky because it was a descent. You descend like 10K to the finish.
Yep.
And I'd won it. Like, so I could sort of think about it. And I was very aware. I was like, this is probably going to be the best win I ever have for like all of those reasons. You know, like it was coming back, but like the people who'd been involved in those last 2 years, it was kind of like this fruition of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like fine with that. You know, I was like, it's. I got my family were there. Everyone was at the finish line. Like, it's still like I still kind of know. I'm like, I don't think I could win a stage of the Giro, and I don't think it would compare to that. You know.
Yep.
And I don't know, to know that and still be like, I still want to do this though. Like that was the difference.
Yeah.
Veteran world-class ultra-endurance cyclist, adventurer, and recent self-supported Iditarod winner, Rebecca Rush, talked with us about the importance of keeping it in balance and keeping it fun. Let's hear what she has to say.
In some ways, I haven't evolved because I remember being a kid growing up in Downers Grove, Illinois, and, you know, going into my backyard to like camp out and to like ask my mom, can I camp out in the backyard? You know, and we go on camping trips, and I love going exploring. And so that sort of curiosity and wanting to be outside, that hasn't changed. And that's the part that I would encourage people, you know, don't evolve. You know, think about what was fun for you as a kid, and why not carry that into your adult life. So that hasn't evolved. What has evolved is my knowledge of, obviously my knowledge of science and training and what I'm capable as an athlete, and combined with listening to that inner voice of that kid who's like, I wonder, you know, what's over here? Could I try this or try that? So you evolve in your brain, but hopefully you don't evolve in kind of your spirit and your heart, and that motivation, that childlike motivation that was there from so long ago. Hopefully people never lose that, even as they get smarter as athletes.
You hinted just a second ago about the fact that you love 90% of the World Tour racing you get to do.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their days when they're just you know, chewing on the stem or whatever.
Yeah.
But it affords you the opportunity to do all this other cool stuff that you have discovered, I guess, in recent years that you love to do. Let's jump over there. When did you realize that you needed those two things to make this all work? But the other things being, Lachlan decides he wants to do a FKT on the Cocopelli Trail. Lachlan decides he wants to do Badlands ultra distance bikepacking race in Spain. You know, some of these other things, DK 200 you've done with Alex.
Yeah.
Just these, Rafa and EF call it the alternate calendar.
Yeah. But
I feel like it's kind of Lachlan's alternate calendar in a way.
Has been up until this point. Lachlan and Alex to the world.
Yeah.
No, it kind of, I think it came out of the thereabouts rides I was doing. And for a long time, they were just two separate things. So I'd kind of race the season, and then in the off season, go and do a trip somewhere. And sometimes that was by myself. Sometimes that was, you know, with Gus, and we'd film it.
And sorry for those who don't know, the thereabouts, the original one was the one in Australia to Uluru. Yeah. Second one, you guys rode from Boulder to Moab with Finney and
Cam Worth.
Yep.
And then we went to Colombia.
Colombia was 3.
Yeah.
And then Eastern Europe was 4. Yeah. Don't forget that one. Yeah. Macedonia and Albania and all those places. Kosovo.
Yeah. So it kind of, I was doing that as kind of a bit of an outlet, and it worked pretty well. like I could race and then be like, all right, now I'm going to go
check out and just do this thing.
Yeah. And then I was just also sort of finding myself riding more and more off-road, and different bikes, mountain bike or like a cross bike, and just like in my training or just riding,
Exploring a bit.
Yeah, and that was sort of like a growing passion, and I was kind of fine with doing them separately, and then the opportunity came to kind of like combine it and be sort of enabled, I guess,
right.
and have people sort of see the value in it, and that was with Rafa and EF.
So for me to jump in here for a second, what do you see as the value of that?
I think like cycling is a big sport, like there's a lot under the umbrella of cycling, and a very disproportionate amount of the attention is on like men's elite road cycling, and I think for quite a long time people saw that as like what cycling was, and the rest were all kind of fringe activities, when I think from my perspective a lot of what you would call like fringe riding, like bike packing or just being off-road in general, mountain biking, a lot of those activities are probably better recreational activities,
Sure.
and they're activities that I think are
more accessible
and enjoyable to the majority of people who take part in cycling. So I thought, like, my idea of the value of it is that it kind of helps to shed a bit of that attention from men's cycling onto like these other disciplines that exist, and through that I've got like credit for a lot of things that aren't actually, like people are like, oh, you're the first guy to race gravel bikes. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm just the first guy who came from road bikes to go race gravel bikes. The
like, world tour,
exactly.
And not down to gravel racing, over to gravel racing.
Exactly.
We don't want to say it's lesser, right? It's just a different thing.
Just a totally different discipline. So and to have like a group of sponsors who could also share that vision and see the value in it. I didn't think I would ever see that with a world tour team. So that was like an opportunity that like way too good to be true. So yeah, that's been the last 2 years for me, and so I've just sort of taken it with both hands, and tried to do as much as I can do, like on the road and off the road.
How do you come up with the things that you want to do?
It's not just me.
Okay.
Like,
there's a strategy behind it, and
totally.
and a group.
I get to kind of throw in a few ideas that like I have, and those things generally just come from things that are motivating me. Because on like a very selfish level, there's a lot of things I just want to go and do. Like,
hey, you said you grabbed it by both horns.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
make this happen, right?
But I think in that's what makes it authentic. We're not just like a bunch of guys who are like, oh, let's go do this gravel race because like EF wants us to. Like that's not.
It's not
point.
Forced in any way.
Yeah. And if it became that, I'd be like disappointed, So yeah, it's kind of a mixture of like things I've found, and then like just events that have like become big deals, like Leadville and Unbound, and like there's a bunch of events that have grown to the point where like for sponsors they're a big deal, So it's nice because they can see the value and return in like us going to like a seemingly insignificant race in compared to a world tour event, but they can also see like, oh wait, this is emerging, this is something different. So it's kind of a mixture of like events that they've kind of identified, that they'd like to be involved with as as sponsors, and then also just sometimes I'm like, might go do this. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture.
So you said earlier on that part of what really demotivated you initially was when you signed a contract, you felt like you were signing yourself over, you lost control over yourself. Does this provide some motivation that you get to do these kind of fun things and invent them to a degree? And
totally. It's like you sort of have a bit more control over what you're doing. But it's also like they're really motivating things because they're new and they're fresh, and like a lot of them I'm just not good at, like, I mean, it's fun to not be expected to be amazing, and also like when you
take some of the pressure off,
and also to have like
limits,
to get better at something again, because essentially you get to a level riding a road bike or in the world tour, and you start like, I mean, when you start and you're 12, you improve 20% each year or whatever it is. It's kind of exponential, and you get to the top, and then it's like, all right, I'm improving 2%, 2%, 2%,
or if that.
And then
right?
if you really want it, right? If you're really like on that grind, otherwise you get to a point and you're trying to stay there. You're trying to be as good as you were.
You've hit the ceiling.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, to get on a mountain bike, knowing you have to go do like Cape Epic in 3 weeks, and then be like, oh, I'm pretty useless at this. And then watch that, like, have that progression. It's very like, it's nice because it's kind of, that's why you got into it, and it's fun to like
the love
put
of
yourself
progress,
into, yeah. And also I think like getting a bit uncomfortable, like frequently is important. Yeah, I mean, like,
no, I'm with you. Yep.
Like I try and do something a little bit uncomfortable, like every week, like just something, whether it's like something longer than I kind of feel like doing, or something maybe a bit more remote, or like riding something on my mountain bike that scares me, or like it's nice to like have that kind of like just pushing yourself a little bit constantly.
Stuff that doesn't show up in Training Peaks.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
The data.
It doesn't show up in Training Peaks, but I can still call it my job.
and it's still a very worthy goal that motivates you.
Yeah. And then also like, I think now like I can contribute more to the sport by doing like these alternate races than I can by like trying to chase like top 20 at the Tour of Swiss,
Yep.
Because not to like take away from a top 20 at the Tour of Swiss, like anyone who could do that is an amazing athlete, and like is really good at what they do, but just from my perspective, like what I'm trying to do, I think like I can give more by just sort of doing, I don't know, things that aren't traditional.
You can say it. They're inspiring people.
Sure,
they are, absolutely. I mean, look at the people that come out, the dot watchers that come out and meet you in the middle of nowhere and during the GB Duro and play music for you or try to give you weird food items or ride with you. People love watching you do this stuff, and because they've seen you do it, they're going to do it. So,
well, it's also accessible.
Right.
Somebody can watch you do the Tour de Suisse and go, that's amazing, but I'll never be able to race the Tour de Suisse. They see you do an Everest challenge and they go, well, I can't do that fast, but I can go do the Everest challenge.
Totally. I mean, you could do an ultra tomorrow if you wanted to. Like, you just got to leave your home and decide you're going to go ride a really long way. Like,
and don't worry about what bags you're going to get and
totally,
all that crap.
That stuff, you just work that out as you go.
Just work it out.
But like, there are established routes out there. Like, if you know, it's only like a Google search away. You can find a lot of these GPX files or whatever and go and get into it. And yeah, also just like, I don't know, if it gets more people riding bikes because they're because now I can see like road cycling is like, it's intimidating from the outside. There's a lot of barriers to entry. And I never realized that when I was coming into it because I grew up in it, with like road cyclists. So I don't know. I think the more I think it'll be better for road cycling long term, because it'll get more people into that. But it's a nicer community then,
Is there any prioritization? Maybe this gets into the politics of your team. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. But is there any like World Tour races do come first, and then we're going to allow you to do this other stuff in your own time. But we don't really want you. We want you to prepare for the Giro and not for your Everesting challenge.
No.
Or is it not like that?
No. It's like I've never had that feeling, which I kind of felt the very first year. I felt like it was up to me to sort of prove that I could do both, so that for the longevity of like the program in a way, and was able to do that. And since then, or even before then, but I kind of proved to myself and to them that I could show up and do both. And I don't know, when I go to road races now, I feel fresh to it. So like I'm always motivated.
So in some ways this could be a benefit.
Yeah. And I think they could see that. But also I think like I'm lucky in that, as I said, they've kind of seen the value in doing alternate races. And to be honest, like it's probably better for them that I'm going and doing well in these alternate races. As I said, because there's we have a lot of guys on our team who can ride fast in a World Tour race. There's no one who has to pick up my slack. Like there's enough good guys in there to like fill that void. If I'm have to go and do a ultra race instead of a World Tour race. So there's none of that. If anything, it's kind of I have to put my hand up and be like, hey, I really want to go and do this World Tour race.
They've forgotten about you a
little
bit.
No.
We could put Lachlan in, but he's probably out bikepacking right now.
So the question I've got to ask you, why would you use the backside of wrist for an Everest challenge? and I got to preface that is possibly my least favorite climb in the world.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand.
Wrist is probably the base of what segment you climbed for your Everesting challenge was about
7,500 feet is the bottom of it. It goes up to 8,000.
Yeah, I think it, like any hill that you want to Everest on, it should be miserable.
Okay,
like that's kind of a requirement.
He likes to get uncomfortable. Fast. He's already said that multiple times.
And like it was kind of. We're trying to stay very close to home, and there's some steep hills around here, but not many straight ones.
Yeah, that's pretty straight and steep.
Yeah, and then it just sort of, I was thinking one day, and I remember that we raced up there in the Tour of Colorado a couple of times. I remember it being steep.
Yes.
And so I went out there and looked at it, and I was like, I think we could do it here.
Here's a way back memory. One of those races that I mentioned at the top of the show that you and I raced
we
at.
Went down it.
We went down that. There was what was that?
The Fort Collins Festival
stage race or something like that. And
I think all three of us were in that race.
That's the first Pro 1-2 race I won.
There you go.
What year was that?
Look at that. There's sentimental value to Wrist Canyon as well.
2008, I think.
Okay, so that was a little before I moved out.
There was the road race.
Yep.
And then the next day
hill
was a
climb,
hill climb.
Up the eastern side.
Yeah,
of Wrist.
In the road race, I came over the top of that because you started straight up the climb, and there was a local guy who's super strong, Kev Nickel.
Yeah.
And
Nichols.
Blake Caldwell.
Yep.
And they were like maybe 10 seconds ahead of me over the top, and I came back on the downhill and then beat him in the sprint.
Scrawny guy.
Yeah.
Descending. That's funny.
Yeah. But I'd actually forgotten that was the same hill.
Yep.
That is the same.
Well, it was somewhere in your head.
Yeah,
that
I've done it like, I can't remember how many times I did it that week. 80 times or something.
Way too many.
Stupid amount of times. Yeah. The thing with like, it was a fun thing to do because there was nothing else to do. But I would like, I often get asked now because, like, you know, someone's beaten the record and they're like, "Are you going to go get it?" I'm like, "No, I don't need it. Like, I contributed my bit."
I still put it.
It's like Jens Vogt doing the hour record. He's done his bit. He's spurred a bunch of other people.
Yeah, well, it's like, what's Wiggo going to come back and like take Kapanag's record? Like, no, just leave it.
Look, I also put an asterisk on your name because he only beat you by like a minute and a half, and you did the whole thing above 7,500 feet.
Right. And on back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, and in my mountain bike shoes.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Know that, yeah.
But like, I mean, that's kind of, I think it's the idea of like chasing a record like that and trying to put it
out of reach
is like such a dick move. You know, it's just like, what are you trying to like be the best forever? Like,
I don't know if this is what motivates you or how you think about these things, but I think that you do know what makes a good story.
Right. I mean,
and
I think if it's interesting to me, well, not always, but majority of the time, I'm like, if I think I'm like, oh, that could be interesting, other people might be like, oh, yeah, that's maybe interesting.
And you've probably been encouraged over the years. You've tested the waters and you found out, I'm not as. There are other weird people like me that respond to this type of stuff, and you've just kind of gone and pushed the envelope a little bit here and there.
Yeah, like if my dad gets excited about it, it's kind of like a good tester. He's like, oh, this could be fun.
Yeah.
But like even like Kurt Capelli, Kurt beat that record again a couple months ago.
Yep.
And I was really glad to see it.
And you knew like, that you left stuff out on the table.
Yeah, like.
But you're saying you're not going
I'm not
back.
saying purposely.
Sure.
I wasn't out there being like, oh, I'm going to leave 5 minutes here. You're still going all out, but ultimately you finish and you say, okay, I left time here.
Sure, you always analyze after.
Yeah, and like, I could go back and do it again. Be like, oh, I could go do something else. And then ultimately there's a guy like Kurt who took the record back off me. And he's the guy who should have it. You know, like that's his
thing.
That's his thing, and he's also like contributed so much more to.
That's a very gentlemanly way of thinking about it.
No, but I mean, he's also done a lot more for like creating routes and like he's kind of before I did it, he was the one giving me advice. You know, like so.
Connection there. Kurt Refsnyder and I used to be cyclocross rivals way back before before he revolutionized himself into this ultra distance guy. Yeah,
okay.
He used to live here. He was a student.
But the crazy thing is, like, also by doing these other events, like, hopefully people realize how good he is.
Yeah,
at what he does.
Absolutely.
Because even when I beat his record, like initially.
He had it. You took it away from him. He went back and took it from you.
And like comparatively, like he was closer. Like I mean, I only beat his record. I beat his record comparatively by less than I beat like the Everesting record. Oh, I beat Phil Gaiman by.
Sure.
For example.
Sure.
You know, like he's like, so he's really legit.
Yeah, absolutely, he is.
And it's cool to go and see people who are really good at what they do. You know, like you can go to like the Three Peaks cyclocross race in Yorkshire and just get like dusted by it.
Came in fourth.
Yeah.
Right?
And like a 45-year-old just smokes you, you know? And you're like,
there you go, Chris.
You're not disappointed. You're just like,
no, definitely. We've talked about this.
This guy's incredible at what he does. Which is cool to see because it's like, you know, otherwise you could walk around for like 15 years of your career thinking you're like a god on a bike. And then like, you know, the reality is like you can go down to Left Hand Canyon and ride some trails with some guys here and realize that you know absolutely nothing about riding bikes. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
where do we want to end this conversation? I want to ask you sort of those philosophical questions that maybe help people understand the lessons you've learned throughout this interesting career of yours that isn't over yet.
Yeah.
And we'll see what
what
turns
happens.
come next. But I wonder, when we've spoken previously, we've addressed this issue of having a good or healthy why, the purpose, the reason behind why you ride or why you do what you do. And that through this conversation, we've seen it go to very unhealthy places, I guess you could say, very healthy places. Are you aware of that when you're in it, or is it only after the fact that you try to define a good, so to speak, why for your
No,
self?
I think I'm aware of it. Just because I guess I've had both extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's not something that you just solve the problem and you're like, okay, I'm good forever now.
Yeah.
Like your
It's always
motivation
changing,
wanes,
yeah.
like changes, wanes every day. Like there's a different motivation, or as long as I think it comes from that good place and the direction is kind of, from that good place, then you can keep yourself in check. In like, if you sort of dip into negative territory, and actually through the racing, the few ultras that I've done, you kind of forced through that process, because you do have these positive moments and these really negative ones, and you're kind of forced to have your own mechanisms to sort of overcome it. And I think that sort of helped me a lot, have a lot more control over my emotions and your why.
Ultra riding as a therapeutic device.
Totally, yeah. I can't speak enough about it. I always tell everyone again, go do one, or if it takes more than one, But
yeah, right. Do it until you find the answer.
Do it until you get to that place. But yeah, I mean, I also am lucky that I have a lot of good people around me who I listen to now, because I don't think. I mean, I occasionally still think I can do it by myself, but I can't. Everyone, you need those people around you, who know you well enough to know if you're in a good place or a bad place, or if you're why you're doing what you're doing, because I could still go and do something that maybe is not coming from a good place, and sell it to the team and be like, I need to go do this, but if the people around me sort of, if Dad's not excited about it,
he's your check,
yeah. So I mean, I think I'm more aware, and I listen to the people around me more.
Do you think that is the most important thing, is having that support system to help you navigate all these ups and downs, whether you're an amateur or a pro? And
yeah, that along with just being honest with yourself, occasionally there's that training session that you have to get done, and you go and you do it anyway, even if the motivation's not there.
Sure. Yeah.
But if that's happening more than once every couple of weeks, maybe you need to think about why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's that honesty, and I'm sure everyone has their own, or needs to find their own way to work that out. But it should be fun, I feel like bikes need to be majority of it needs to be play, you
Yes.
need to have a fun element. And I mean, I don't think there's, even if you look at professional cycling now, the most successful guys, Van der Poel, Sagan, even wait till Pidcock once he starts going. They just spend half their time playing.
Yeah. That is very true. That those three guys in particular, they're in their own little world, kind of dancing with the bike and enjoying themselves.
Exactly,
and
they'll jump from their mountain bike and Like, and I think that way of thinking, and also just that freedom within like what has been such a structured sport, is what's going to and is enabling them to like really break through.
Kind of goes back to your point too about longevity.
Yeah,
you could be very rigid. You could put your head down and do all the intervals you want and be really good, but your career might be half the time, or your mental health or your happiness fulfillment might be a quarter of the size.
Exactly. And that's not to say everyone.
Sure.
You know, I know a bunch of people who just love to do the effort, see the number, and like that makes them happy, you know, and then they can go and perform, put on the line in the race, and that's great for them. But that's not the only way.
What I really like is you found your own motivation. I've seen so many athletes who have the talent, want to see what they can do in this sport. They see what it's about and go, okay, that's not motivating for me, and they quit. And
right.
You had that experience, and instead of saying, okay, I'm done and moving on, or you had that briefly, you then took a very unique approach of saying, how can I still do this, but shape it in a way that it's motivating and fun for me? And
yeah.
It created a more unique career path where you go, but this gets me up every morning. This
totally. And it used to be that thing of like you'd have like those 2 rides every year, you know, like those 2 big epic rides that like, and I can still remember them from when I was a kid, like, but there was only usually 2 every year, you know, like where like you took the wrong turn and like, or you ran out of food, or like that storm came, or like whatever it was, you know, and like you'd remember those 2, or if you were lucky, you had like 5, and then the other 300 were just like, oh, they kind of all mixed together, you know? And so now, like, I try and have as many of those rides. And, like, each day I try and put together a ride that I'm like, that was fulfilling somehow. And I remember this for whatever reason, whether that's, like, perfecting a loop that I already have, whether it's, like, exploring a totally new spot, or, like, whether that means like riding 3 bikes in one day, like that's kind of what I'm trying to like get. That's what I try to do most days.
Get creative.
Yeah, exactly. And like create rides that I remember. Because like for me now, that's the most enjoyable day I can think of involves riding for most of it. You know?
Yes. If not all of it.
Yeah. And once like if that becomes something different, I like to think that I'll chase whatever that is. But there's nothing else near it for me right now, so that's kind of what I'm chasing.
Don't you love those rides that you come back, you try to tell your wife or your friends about it, and they just have this look of shock on their face, like, why do you do this sport? That's horrible. And you're like, no, you don't get it. That was amazing.
Totally.
That was such a good day.
Totally. It's like when I come back now from like Badlands or something, and it's like for Rachel, it's like I've just gone away again for like a week. And we come back, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I got what I needed out of it. Like, she doesn't need to know the whole thing. But then now there's like a video that comes.
Yeah, this is the thing about this is the thing about your life. Of half of it, not half of it, but some of it is documented.
Yeah,
so people
which I'm super lucky to have. Just see it, and be like, whoa.
Yes.
Yeah, that looked dangerous.
For those who don't know, that was a 43-hour bike ride.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, remember that one.
Yeah,
I should hope so.
There's probably moments you don't remember and never will be able to access, but yeah. Well, always a philosopher, Lachlan Morton. It's been a pleasure to have you on Fast Talk today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was another episode of Fast Talk. Subscribe to Fast Talk wherever you prefer to find your favorite podcast. Be sure to leave us a rating and a review. The thoughts and opinions expressed on Fast Talk are those of the individual. As always, we love your feedback, so join the conversation at forums.fasttalklabs.com to discuss each and every episode. Become a member of Fast Talk Laboratories at fasttalklabs.com/join and become a part of our education and coaching community. For Lachlan Morton, Rebecca Rush, Ted King, and Trevor Connor, I'm Chris Case. Thanks for listening.